Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Black Doctoral Network weekly web series entitled Conversation Starters. I'm your moderator, Fese Longe, and I am thrilled that you could join us for another Friday of great conversation. Tonight, we will be discussing maximizing the value of your degree. Joining me in this conversation are two expert scholars that will provide their insight on this topic. Our first panelist joining us this evening is Dr. Natasha Knight, who is a manager in Altria's corporate citizenship organization. She currently holds a PhD in social and behavioral sciences from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. As a program strategist and multi-passionate entrepreneur, she has expertise in developing strategies for preventing underage use of tobacco and other risky behaviors. She has also launched a coaching practice entitled Discover the Remarkable You, LLC, for women to create successful and fulfilling careers. I welcome you, Dr. Knight.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank you. The next panelist joining us this evening is Ms. Michonne Decoteau, who is a PhD student at Aspen University. She currently works as an e-discovery trainer at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. Her dissertation topic entails the impact of the imposter syndrome on the career trajectory of women in executive leader roles in STEM. I welcome you, Ms. Decoteau.
Thank you.
So I want to go ahead and jump right in because this is a great topic. I think a lot of students going through their graduate journey really want to understand how they can get the real value out of their degree, especially at this time frame during the COVID pandemic, which has really affected a lot of career choices. So the first question that I have for you all is, how would you describe the process of maximizing the value of your degree? Dr. Knight.
Well, first, I would like to say that there's no one right process to maximize the value of your degree. You pursue your degree and go after a career that's really best suited for your strengths and the things that you're passionate about. So in that regard, how you go about maximizing those learnings should really be just as tailored as you know the career path that you choose in general. I think broadly, the process involves creativity and thinking about the things that you want to portray in your brand. So if, for example, if you are someone who has a lot of passion around inclusion, diversity, and equity issues, and you also happen to be someone who's very analytical and can crunch numbers and really think about how we look at things from a quantitative standpoint, you don't just have to go, especially if you have a PhD, you don't just have to go into academia or even to government or in a what we would call a traditional position. Think about things like people analytics and how you can use those types of analytical skills to help improve corporations or organizations that are not necessarily directly tied to your field of study. So I think it involves creativity and really thinking outside the box to perhaps think about some things that you don't see your mentors or everyone around you doing.
No, thank you, Dr. Knight. Ms. Decoteau, what are your thoughts? I think you're muted.
I apologize, my cat. I agree. And just to sort of play that a little further, we find ourselves in a very unique time here where most of what we do is remote. So this is a great opportunity to work with others to try to publish in some sector of your area, or even to sort of look at transferable skills that you gained while you were in your program that might lend itself to other areas of opportunity, right? And so as you talked about quantitative, let's just say that you're someone who got a master's in something like negotiation or conflict management or something of that nature, and you're now working in a training or instruction area with everything being online. Take a look, take a step back, look at your resume again, and those things that may allow you to get into other areas. I get so many interesting calls outside of e-discovery these days for information governance, for unique areas at some of the pharmacy organizations that are going through sort of research investigations. So it's just a great time to expand and look at other opportunities and sort of step out of your comfort zone and just find other things that you can look into. Certainly, COVID, for anyone, for example, who really is into business analytics or numbers, COVID provides a rich document and library of almost any topic these days. So.
No, thank you for that. And I think what I'm getting from both of your answers is that you definitely have to think outside the box and be creative, especially now when things are, different, for lack of a better term. So the next question that I have for you all is, what academic resources are important to utilize during the graduate journey? Ms. Dakota.
Well, I still very much am in touch with my executive mentor, and through her, I've had opportunities to meet some other people who've recently gotten into academia. I've also started reaching out to some other professional networks like Mboche, the Association for Black Women in Chemistry, and NISTA, just to find out what's happening out there that I can reach out to. And then, I sort of try to keep our online career group sort of accountable to what you could be doing for me as a student in a potential doctoral program. So my social networks, the sorority, my professional networks, extensions of that, and career online programs. Certainly, Black Doctoral Network is a rich treasure trove of people, resources, and information.
No, thank you. Dr. Knight.
So I completely agree with Michonne, and I would also say not to forget alumni of your current school or even schools that you've attended in the past. Alumni networks are powerful, and especially for the school that you are currently attending, reaching out to them in terms of for things like informational interviews to understand sort of where their career has taken them since they completed the program that you're enrolled in. In addition to alumni, make sure that you stay in touch with your peer group. I think that it's very easy in this space of remote work and remote learning, especially if you're in the dissertation writing phase, to isolate yourself inadvertently and not stay in contact with others, and making sure that you are keeping those relationships growing and keeping them active. So alumni, your peer groups, if there are any types of, as Michonne mentioned, mentors or executives in residence, those are great folks to get some typically free resources and free coaching if you are looking and need that type of resource. But don't forget that the school should have even the standard career resources for you for things like resume writing and cover letter prep or cover letter preparation and interview prep. And if they don't, then perhaps those are things that you can reach out again to others, as Michonne mentioned, in your professional network for that type of guidance and assistance.
No, thank you, Dr. Knight. And I love how you all really grasp the importance of networking and social networks and that community aspect of, maximizing your degree. So that's definitely really important. So the next question that I have for you all are, what are some effective strategies to implement when marketing yourself? Dr. Knight.
So this goes right to your personal brand and making sure that you are very clear about what your personal brand is. If you're not clear, then there are a lot of resources out there for processes that you can go through to make sure that you understand what your brand is in terms of knowing what your values are, what your strengths are, what others say your strengths are, and what they see you representing and doing well. So I would say like I said, be very clear on what your brand is, learn what that is, and be consistent in how you present that brand. So if you are an expert on topic A today, and that's what you're posting a lot about on LinkedIn, and then next week you're completely on the opposite end of the spectrum doing something else, people don't quite know they get confused about what your expertise is and what your thought leadership is really grounded in. So be consistent in how you present your brand. Also, one thing that I really encourage folks to do is to um, get very, very astute with your writing skills. Make sure that you are writing clearly, whether it's in an email or a social media post, because those are the things that people pick up on first, especially now that we're in such a remote environment, even more so than we were before COVID. Yes, you were posting on LinkedIn and you were posting on Facebook and other spaces where you might connect with professionals, but it's even more so now. So make sure that you're always presenting yourself well, and have an elevator pitch. If you're not writing something, when you have a conversation with someone, make sure that you have an elevator pitch about the things that you are passionate about and what you're looking for. And if you're similar to Michonne, if you're working on your dissertation, to be able to explain what that topic is and why you're doing it. You just always have to be ready, because you never know when you're going to get the opportunity to market yourself to someone who could open that next door of opportunity for you.
No, thank you, Dr. Knight, for those wonderful, wonderful strategies. Definitely, a lot of our audience members can definitely relate to that and the importance of marketing yourself. Ms. Dakota.
I don't know. I feel like I should have picked up a pen and taken a lot of notes here. um, to the students, don't sell yourself short. Don't feel like you have to know your topic so cold at this point. And don't be afraid to just rattle off the purpose of your study. You may not get it right until the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 10th time that you do that elevator speech or that poster board presentation. But find family members who will listen, or, whomever, so that you can get used to talking about it. I remember when I first started with my cohort, the very first time we had to do our elevator speech, I think my hands were sweaty and I didn't know what to say. And I probably talked more about what I didn't know than I did. And then I realized that it would come with repetition and patience and forgiving yourself and knowing that it's okay for you not to know things. The other thing that I just want to point out very briefly is the importance of not selling your skill set short. Right? So we got into these programs with a certain skill set that we brought to the table. And sometimes people devalue their skill sets, not talking about my topic at all here, because they think that other people have a better understanding. Don't do that. If you're good with creating macros, if you're good with APA 7, if you're a technical writer, don't sell that skill set short. Use it. Use it for career purposes, for helping others, and just to sort of propel yourself forward. You'd be surprised at who needs to know that information. Just as you would be surprised that there are people who know you, who can kind of help you determine your brand if you can't. And so as we talk about sort of moving into knowing yourself, knowing your brand, knowing your sweet spot and your skill sets, write them down. It's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you don't know if you want to do a quantitative study or qualitative study or an action research project. Those things will come, I promise you, with time. And then hopefully we'll be doing this panel with some of you out there that are listening soon.
No, thank you, Dr. Dakota. Soon to be doctor, rightfully so. But I really appreciate you providing the student perspective on that and just acknowledging certain things that a lot of graduate students may feel going through that process when they're really trying to figure out their next steps. So thank you. So the next question that I have is, how do professional development activities increase the value of your degree? Ms. Dakota.
So, eek. A couple of things here. When we talk about professional development, again, we're in a very unique time in COVID because a lot of the professional development activities are online now, right? And so we wind up in all these video platforms and conversations, but don't mistake social networks for professional development. There are just a number of opportunities, free and perhaps not free that are available for things like writing, for things like developing an abstract, for, just getting online and talking about your topic. And so I'd encourage you to talk to your school, talk to others in your social networks to find those activities. Um, and take advantage of as many of them as possible. Even if it's a professional development group that helps you with your organization skills and your time management for studying, all of them help. Mental health and professional development helps. And I think that we get a little overwhelmed sometimes with our research and just not having enough time in the day, but find them, take advantage of them. So many of the activities are free these days and available that normally would have a cost associated with them. It'd be great if there could be some type of a link after this for people to share in professional development activities that they know of that are coming up, and we can kind of amass a list of something like that.
Thank you. And Dr. Knight.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of professional development activities in terms of, for example, if you are participating, volunteering in some sort of capacity with things like, or organizations like the Black Doctoral Network, or if you are, a leader with your student council, those types of professional development activities where it's more of a service activity are also important for increasing the value of your degree. They give you an opportunity to apply those transferable skills that Michonne mentioned earlier. So things like managing projects or managing people, or developing a strategy, implementing some type of intervention or implementing a new program. Those are things that are hugely important for when you're getting ready for that job afterwards. And if you're saying, oh, well, I've only ever been a student, for example, if you're someone who's gone straight through, or if it's been several years since you've worked because you have been going to school full time, it's not that you haven't been working, you've just been applying those skills in a different way. So don't forget that those types of professional development activities are great ways for you to continue to gain experience and to show that you know how to apply the skills that you gain in research in terms of, especially if you're in a PhD program, in terms of managing projects, coming up with ideas, and then executing against those ideas are very applicable outside of the academic setting, which is what employers will be looking for if you are, not looking to go the traditional tenure track route after you're done with your PhD.
Thank you, Dr. Knight. And both of you, thank you for sharing, how professional development activities can really, really help postgraduate. So I thank you both for that. So the next question that I have is, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the availability of career opportunities? Dr. Knight.
This is one that I wanted someone else to cover first, but I'll take a shot at it. I think that COVID-19 is, as Michonne mentioned earlier, has put us in a very interesting place where so many things are remote that there are companies now who are located on one coast of the country and are completely open to hiring someone who is thousands of miles away, as long as you have the credentials and you are qualified for the position. So I think on one hand, it has certainly made it easier for some folks in certain fields, especially if you're interested in going into spaces like pharmaceuticals or logistics or things around of that nature. Even technology, if you're thinking about like all of these streaming platforms that have to be developed and managed and improved to handle the sheer amount of increase that they've experienced over the past 12 months. At the same time, there may be some fields that are more focused on, for example, being in the lab, where you may have a little bit more of a challenge trying to find, say, postdoc opportunities or full-time opportunities in person if their lab work has decreased because of COVID restrictions. I also think that it's a lot of students have been able in the past to go to conferences to network with people and to connect with potential employers or colleagues at organizations of interest for after graduation, and that's not happening right now. Hopefully later this year we'll see the conference season pick up, but last year it just was not there. So I think that has impacted the availability of those avenues to find career opportunities. So it means that you have to be a little bit more deliberate and maximize use of those networks that we mentioned before in order to identify the career opportunities that are out there.
No, thank you, Dr. Knight. I definitely agree with that. And I'm sure our audience members agree with a lot of that has been discussed so far. If you are currently watching, feel free to comment, like, and share this live episode of Conversation Starters as we discuss our wonderful topic of maximizing the value of your degree. Ms. Dakota, what are your thoughts?
Well, I absolutely agree. This is a really interesting time, right? If you are quasi-technical and you don't mind being sort of in this remote space, it's a great opportunity. Interestingly enough, a lot of the calls that I get are cryptocurrency, where they're looking for business process improvement, not developers or back-end people. A lot of positions on Slack, where they're looking for front-end users who are not technical, but have a very particular educational background. The private education companies that are looking for education technology, even fintech organizations that are not looking for fintech or STEM, but people who work on the legal side that can help with investigations, policy development, things of that nature. And then, of course, on the government side, I am seeing a lot of new business proposals and seeking non-technical people with a back-end postdoctoral who can help in areas like OSHA, who can help on the government policy development. And so if you're a little bit creative, and you can sort of expand out of your comfort zone. And again, I think COVID is presenting us all with a good opportunity to try a new route, something that perhaps in in your past you weren't ready for. And so unfortunately, I know a lot of us have been displaced because of COVID. And certainly it's been a new learning experience in trying to find the technology behind a lot of the research. But the opportunities are there for education, not necessarily in educational fields.
Thank you, and for providing that in-depth insight from your perspective. So the next question that I have, and I know we talked a little bit about this in the earlier part about social networks and things of that nature, but how significant are collaborations between academic leadership, local organizations, and other stakeholders in career selection? Mr. Kodo.
I think that they're critical, but they're mutually exclusive, right? And so I continue to have relationships with academic leadership in my previous schools as well as current. And of course, working in the government side of things, working with some of the local organizations and volunteer groups that are currently occurring in Brooklyn and in Harlem. Understanding kind of what's going on in politics and just finding out if there's a need for someone with my skill set or someone that I know that has a similar skill set to that area. And of course, for entrepreneurs out there who are trying to find their way forward, these are excellent opportunities, especially since, again, a lot of things are online in terms of leadership opportunities, volunteer organizations, to get out and liaise and meet with people through, links like what is the new one? Odyssey, I believe, and LinkedIn, and just to strengthen those ties. Just because you can't pick up a phone doesn't mean that you can't set up a Microsoft Teams meeting. Or maybe you should just pick it up and ask how people are doing. How is your family? How are things coming with your organization? I continue to believe that as unfortunate as COVID has been, this is a blessing to some of us who were scared to step out on faith, reassess our skill sets, and go back to getting to talk to people that you haven't in a while who could be helping you along the way or vice versa.
Thank you. And Dr. Knight.
I think You've covered it so beautifully. I mean, I completely agree. I think that more and more our world is operating less and less in a vacuum, right? We don't. I think it's easy to create silos if you are in certain environments, and especially now in the space that we're working in. But I also think that our work certain things, if we're thinking even about what we're seeing now in terms of systemic racism and the fact that we need a lot of boots on the ground to help really address these issues in every organization from grassroots all the way up to federal government. It requires collaboration. It requires us to have conversations. We need the expertise and the fresh eyes of folks like you all who are just finishing up school, who have new ways of thinking about studying and developing insights in different spaces. So we can't do that if we're only sticking to our own organizations or to our own types of agencies. So those collaborations are key for solving. I'm in public health, so all of this to me is all related to public health. But I think if we don't have collaboration, we can't make any paths forward. And I think that when we are collaborating and we start to think about things in a new way, that does open doors for new career opportunities. When we start to think about, well, we do need someone who's an expert in this and who can help pull all of it together. So I'll stop there. That's a soapbox topic for me, but we have to collaborate if we're going to move forward.
No, thank you, Dr. Knight. I definitely agree with all your points. It's definitely important, like you both stated, to really step outside the box and reach out to other different types of organizations to see if a collaboration or partnership is possible. So thank you. So the next question that I have is, do you think that the current educational system provides the necessary resources for graduate students to explore different career opportunities? Ms. Dakota.
I'm sorry. No. With a lot of caveats, right? Your degree is only as fruitful and productive as you make it, right? And so I think that this starts off with who are you reaching out to and speaking to find those career opportunities. I talked about expanding your search as we talk about jobs and your social network. Reach out to someone that's in your fourth circle on LinkedIn. But what I think is happening, though, is that the schools have some career opportunity organizations there, but the onus is on the student and the postdoc to really seek them and push forward to glean opportunities. And so what I've found is in talking to people who are looking for positions, a lot of those positions were not found by the educational system, but through others in organizations that they affiliate with who inform them of the job. And so I start to wonder, does that mean that we're not pushing for those resources enough, or are we not giving them the information that we need to be successful with respect to our career searches? And I guess I would ask you guys, is that the impression as a student? One who has been talking to our Career Center a lot lately, I don't honestly, I feel like there are boxes that can be checked. Yes, we do this, we do that, we help with resumes. But there is just this sort of dead space as you talk a little bit about how we move forward. What is there? What can you do? Who can I speak to? Why I'm receiving this sort of same response or no response. Is it the website? Is it school? What is it? So I actually would ask for a little more information from you guys on that question, if you don't mind.
Well, Dr. Knight, any thoughts?
I'm sorry. I did.
There is no need to apologize. No need to apologize. So I think that I agree that the schools have very basic resources, right? So there is a career center, and they do post jobs, and they do review resumes and cover letters and things of that nature. They may even help you, as I mentioned earlier, with some interview prep. But it is up to the student to really go find and go do, and figure out who it is that they're supposed to talk to, who has the answers that they're looking for in terms of what I would call more non-traditional career paths. So it's been like a decade since I was a PhD student, but I don't know this has changed a whole lot from my conversations with current students. For PhD students, often the only resources they receive are resources geared to push them into a tenure track or some type of research position in an academic setting. And the purpose of this conversation is to help folks understand that there is so much more to your degree than going tenure track. And often I think that schools, because you have a lot of faculty who have been working in that space for so long, and they want the academy to grow, right? They want, we hope, the academy to become more inclusive and more diverse. So often you hear people saying, we need you, and we need you here. You need to be in the academy. You need to, be on tenure track, get tenure. And that's just not the only thing that students can do. But because that's been the experience of so many of our mentors and our advisors in academia, it's the only advice that they really know how to give, unfortunately. I think that there's an opportunity for programs to tap into networks like Black Doctoral Network that has a broader set of folks with different types of career experiences and different career paths that don't just involve going into like I said, a traditional research career. So I think that is another reason, back to the collaboration question, why there needs to be more collaboration between academia and other types of organizations. When there's more collaboration, then you can see the opportunities that are there for students to pursue, and you can connect them. It broadens their network so that they can see these are the opportunities, these are the people that I can talk to, sort of like developing that fourth layer of connections beyond that very, very tight inner circle of folks who are working in more traditional fields that are training the students. So I guess that's a long way of saying no, I don't think that they do. But, it's an opportunity for growth.
No, I definitely agree with both of you. And, just putting a tidbit in as a PhD student myself, I would have to agree with Ms. Dakota and Dr. Knight in the fact that a lot of the professors do provide the insight from their perspective, because that is the tradition and the systems that have been in place. But I do think that COVID-19 has put out the narrative for innovation and creativity to be something that a lot of the organizations in education can really expand upon. So just putting a little tidbit in there with regard to that question. And I think we have another statement here saying, I've been trying to decide between an EDD or PhD. I was moving away from PhD because I thought the main goal was to go into academia, and I didn't necessarily want to go into that direction. Thank you for saying there are other opportunities out there besides academia. And this is why we're doing this. As you can see, our panelists have really provided that insight that it's not, just an academic track that you can go on. There are opportunities outside of the academic track, like entrepreneurship, consulting, different aspects in every industry. And if you know how to brand yourself, market yourself, as we've discussed in this episode, then you are definitely on the way of, being your own boss and making opportunities for yourself. So I thank you both for providing that insight. And as you can see, a lot of our audience members have been tuning in and listening. and hopefully they were taking some notes. But before we go, I have one more question to ask you all. The question is, how has your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network helped to enhance you personally and or professionally? Ms. Dakota.
And so it's interesting. The Black Doctoral Network is actually the reason that I ultimately chose to pursue my PhD. I had a friend who was an active member of the Black Doctoral Network, and I'd been following a lot of the members and conversations. And last year, I believe it was the year before, I was able to attend the BDN conference at Rutgers University. And I realized how important it was not to just have that resource, but to know others who were in that same space. And so I believe that's the first part. The second part is, in all honesty, there's nothing like talking to a bunch of people who look like you, who not just understand what you're going through, but your process as a minority student. And so I think that if you don't know about the Black Doctoral Network, get to know the Black Doctoral Network. The webpage is fantastic. Their conferences are wonderful. And since the conferences have been virtual, it's given extra opportunity these days to really see what the group is about and tell others about it. I think that the BDN is something very unique and special. And as you move into the further processes of your doctorate, you're going to need those resources. I can't tell you again enough how helpful the people have been that I've met with BDN.
Thank you. And we
Oh,
love
no, thank
having
you.
you as a member and for you participating in this episode of Conversation Starters. And so, Dr. Knight.
Yeah, I think that my first engagement with BDN was maybe like 2014-ish when a colleague and I co-presented at the conference. I think that was held in Philadelphia that year.
Mhm.
And I guess similar to what was stated before, arriving at the conference venue and seeing like rooms full of people who looked like you and who were accomplished and who either already had a PhD or a doctorate degree or were working towards that was hugely, hugely motivating and inspirational. So I, at that point, had already finished up my PhD, but was on tenure track in a space where I was the youngest, for sure, faculty member, and the only faculty member, I shouldn't say the only faculty member of color, but certainly the only Black woman on faculty in that department. And so being able to have a network of folks where you could, as even with being a student, where you could just tap into and connect with people and see how there's like 0 degrees of separation between so many of us, or very few degrees, I shouldn't say 0. That was hugely satisfying, hugely rewarding. And even now, it's just, it's great to see that the network is still here and that it's growing and that it's providing such quality resources for people. Even if you can't get to all, there are so many things that you guys are doing, even if you can't get to all of them, sitting in on 1 or 2, I find that you leave enriched and you leave with some actionable advice that you can use to help your career, whether you are still a student, whether you are thinking about becoming a student, or whether you've already finished and are just staying in the network for the additional professional development.
Thank you, Dr. Knight, for all your contributions and just for being a member of the BDN network. Well, this concludes this conversation for this evening. I want to thank you both for taking time out on this wonderful Friday to share your insight on the topic of maximizing the value of your degree. And to our audience members, if you've enjoyed Conversation Starters and would like to keep up to date with the latest BDN developments, please be sure to check us out on blackphdnetwork.org and become a member, and follow us on Facebook at Black Doctoral Network. Please be sure to share this live session with your friends, families, and colleagues and your professional network. I'm your moderator, Fese Longe. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good evening. I think also we have a comment that some of our audience members would like some of the contact information that you guys have so they can get in touch with you after this program. So Dr. Knight, how can they get in contact with you?
Sure. So I can be found on LinkedIn. That's probably where you can become most familiar with my work. You can also reach me through my website, drnatashaknight.com, or via email at natashaknight.phd@gmail.com.
Thank you.
The same for me. I can be reached on LinkedIn. And also, please feel free to email and reach out. I look forward to talking to all of you at mashondakoto@gmail.com.
Thank you again, ladies, for joining me this evening, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.